machine was busy, and so that's why you have this, but it's worked out pretty well, okay? So these are your notes, I hope punching for you. Go ahead and title them notes 1-9. It's called inverse functions. Inverse functions. Relatively speaking, this is a very simple lesson, okay? Very basic, so it won't be hard. And also, this is the last thing that you need to learn today before the test. So this is the last thing that I'll teach you. Tomorrow you'll practice it. Monday, Tuesday you'll practice for the test. So this is the last piece of knowledge. So the first thing, what do we mean by inverse functions? Inverse is not an exact, but just to like help you if you don't understand, it's kind of like opposite. Notice I said kind of, because it's not exactly the same thing, but or else we would have called them opposite functions, right? We don't. Let me show you visually. This is true for all inverse functions, okay? Draw yourself just a little grid like that. If you draw the parent linear function, that's this one right here. Y equals X, okay? That question was just on your mini quiz 2 days ago. What's the parent linear function? It's that one. Okay, for parent or for functions, and I'm gonna draw something that's not a function just so you can see the reflection easily, okay? So let's say I had a heart here, and this was f of x. The reflection, so if that red line, that's where you folded the paper, that's where it reflected. Can you picture how the heart would look on the other side? So it would look kind of like this, right? I went to put it right in the middle, but it's not right in the middle. Right, you agree that's how it would fold? Okay, that is true for inverse functions. That's what an inverse function is. So inverse functions always reflect over this line like that. So visually, that's how you could see it, okay? I forgot to introduce a symbol to you, so let me go here. So that we don't have to keep writing the word inverse functions all the time. It's convenient to know that's the symbol for it. That means, this means inverse functions. And it's super convenient because then we don't have to keep writing it over and over. That's the symbol for inverse functions. So it's not like a power of -1 or something like that. That just means inverse. So over here, this would be the inverse. Okay. To find inverse functions. Actually, now that we know the symbol, why don't we just put the symbol here? To find inverse functions, that's much faster. There's only 2 steps. Okay, only 2 steps. So steps. I guess we could say to calculate inverse functions, to whatever. It's the same thing. But step 1, all you need to do is switch x with y. So x will become y, and y will become x. No other thing, like you don't take the signs, you don't take the numbers, you don't take the parentheses, just the 2 letters switch. Once you've switched the 2 letters, step 2, and the final step is you solve for y. That's it. You should have done that in algebra 2, okay? At least the basics ones. So here we go. Let's do some examples, and I'll show you some more graphs here in a second. So let's call this part 1, examples of finding inverse functions. I want you also to know, guys, this is important, we're just skimming the surface again of inverse functions. We're just doing basic equations, and we're not diving really deep into it. Just know there's a lot more to this. So we're just kind of getting the basics of it. Okay, So the first thing is that you notice you're like, switch y, but there's no y, but there is, right? Because f of x is just y. So that's just y. I just rewrote it, I didn't switch nothing. And now this is when I switch. So y becomes x, and x becomes y. They just switch. Okay, I don't take any of the numbers or signs. And this becomes plus 3. That right there is step 1. Step 1. Okay, where you just switch x with y. Once you have switched once you have switched x with y, you do step 2, and that just means you solve for y. Okay, so here this helps to, when we say solve, that also means, like, if you're not sure what that means, isolate the y. You need to get the y by itself. That's what we mean by solve. So I need to get this y by itself. So here's the middle. So I subtract 3 from both sides. Easy lesson. The only thing that's gonna slow you down is the solving. Like if your solving is kind of rough on the edges, then you might struggle a little bit. But you will get good at solving in this class because we solve all the time. Okay. So anyways, notice the y is by itself. I'm actually done. That's it. That's it. Okay, but what I'm gonna do here, because it looks funky, because the long side is on the left and the short side, I'm just gonna switch them. If you switch them evenly, you don't have to switch sides. They stay the same. Okay, so watch. Y equals. This is the proper way of writing it. Okay. But now that this is truly, and of course I'm doing extra steps for you, but now that it's truly, I found it, y is by itself, I rename it, and I say this is the inverse function. So I give it its title. Let's do title. This one is the inverse function. Not too bad, right? Do you guys remember doing this in Algebra 2? Yeah. No? Some of you guys maybe no? Okay. You should have done it. Okay, let's do number 2. Even if you didn't do it, it's not bad. Okay. Let's do let's do this one. F of x equals negative x minus 5 equals 3. Okay, I'm gonna set my timer, give you 1 minute, and see how far you can get. Okay, depending on your solving, you might be able to finish it all the way through, or you might get stuck halfway, but everybody here should be able to do step 1, because that's this switch with x with y. There's 1 minute, and it's not a lot of time, okay, but just want to see how far you got with it. Okay, so here we go. Now I'm gonna start skipping a few steps, okay, but, so for example, this is y equals that. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch, okay, so y, this is really just y, so this will become x, and x will become y. X becomes y, y becomes x, because that's really just y. Okay, and then now that's step 1. Step 2 is the solving. So I need to get the y completely isolated. The first thing is you break up the fractions. So we gotta get rid of that 3. What is that 3 doing right now, or trying to do? Divide. So always ask yourself, that way you know the opposite of division is multiplication. And whatever you do to one side, you always do to the other side. And here's what happens, okay, the threes will cancel because they're opposites. Okay. And so you end up with 3x minus 5, so no more fraction, which is nice, okay? But I just gotta keep on going to get that y by itself, so I add 5, add 5. I can't add those because they're unlike terms. Those cancel, drop down the negative y. You guys think I'm finished there? No, because remember it says get the y by itself, not the negative y. Okay, so we gotta get rid of the negative symbol. Any question though right now that you have? Does that make sense? Everything's okay? Okay, so we get rid of the negative, okay? Here's how you get, this is like a negative 1 times. So to get rid of that, you divide by negative 1. That's one way you could do it. And so the only catch is that you have to divide every piece by negative 1. Now something neat happens, and if you're aware of this, you could take this shortcut. When you divide by a negative, all your signs just flip, right? So this positive becomes negative, this positive becomes negative, that negative becomes a positive. So if you know that ahead of time, you can bypass that step and just switch all your signs. Anyways, notice the y is by itself. So I'm gonna not only switch, but retitle at the same time. Okay, so my inverse function is this. And you're done. So this lesson is a lot of remembering how to solve too, like bringing back those skills too. Does anybody have any question, confusion, verification, inquiry? Good. Okay. Let's try example 3. Let's try a cubic this time. Example 3. Let's do f of x equals cube root minus 3. Now we haven't done a cube root, but I feel confident you guys can do this. Okay, so try it. So remember, this is y equals, f of x is y equals. Let's see how you guys did. Okay, so again, I'm gonna now just skip to, this is x now, and this becomes y minus 3. So I add 3 to both sides, right? Plus 3 plus 3. So I get x plus 3 equals cube root of y. Those cancel. We haven't gone over this, you have to remember this if you did. How do you get rid of a cube root? Cube it, okay, cube. So you do a little 3 like that. What you don't do, okay, I wanna make sure you don't do this. Don't put 2 little 3s like that. Okay, that's not how it works. I haven't seen nobody do that, but just in case. You have to put parentheses and then cube, which is different than 2 little 3s. I'm gonna give you a different answer. Okay, that will completely cancel the cube root and the cube cancel each other out. So that leaves you just with y. And so you're finished. Once y is by itself, you're finished. Okay, so you can retitle. This is my official inverse. You don't have to go and multiply that by nominal 3 times or anything. You just leave it like that. What do you guys think? Is it making sense? Got it? Yeah? Okay. Let's do one last one of these. Okay. Sample form. Last one. Let's do f of x equals negative 2x cubed plus 1. That way you have 2 linears and 2 cubes. We'll do a minute and a half. Here we go. Okay. So again, this is y equals, so I'm going to change y to x to y, negative 2, y cubed plus 1. We know we have to subtract this 1 from both sides, so x minus 1, drop that down, negative 2y cubed. Right here we have to be careful, right, because some students might add that 2, but what do we do, guys, to get rid of that 2? Divide is. That's why you have to ask yourself what they're doing. So they're multiplying, so I divide. And not only by 2, some students would say divide by 2, but.
And negative 2.
Yeah, whatever you're multiplying by, you divide by. Okay. Now you could write it like this. You could do that. That's fine. Okay. But it's more efficient and cleaner looking if you do this. All of this divided by negative 2. That's it. And then negative 2 and negative 2 cancel, which is the whole reason for doing this. Okay, so let's keep on going here. And so now I have this x minus 1 over negative 2 equal y cubed. Is anybody confused up to this point? Makes sense. Okay. How do we get rid of a cubic? Let me see. I know you know how, but I'm seeing if your vocab skills. Cube root, okay, not a square root, a cube root. Cube root this side, cube root that side. Always both sides. And so that would cancel the cubic, and that just stays the same. There's nothing you can do there. Okay, so that is your final answer, so I'm gonna give it its name. This is my inverse function. It's the cube root of x minus 1 over 2. That's all you can do. Is that all right? Okay, I wanted to show you just one more graph before we go to the next part. Real quick, look at this graph. And I told you earlier that inverse functions reflect over that red line. So see if you can picture, or even make yourself a little sketch, and see if you could reflect that purple one over the red line, just to see how good you are with your visuals. Can you picture what if you were to fold that, if it was a paper, and the purple part was wet ink, and you folded it, what would the imprint of that purple be? If you folded it right on the red line. It's good to know this because sometimes on tests they give you graphs, and if you just reflect it like that, that's the inverse. Alright, check this out. It's kind of a, it's not a trick, but it kind of helps to do it this way. Instead of trying to do all of it in one time, you do a piece at a time. So if I just do this piece, okay, just reflect that piece, right, just that tail part, okay. Now I'm just gonna reflect this piece. So if I fold it, and then I just reflect that piece, and then I just fold this piece. So if you do something like similar to that, that's the reflection of that one. This one is the cubic function, which this guys did. We have not done the cube root. This is the parent cube root function. So they're inverse of each other, so they're opposites of each other. Okay. All right, let's go to part 2. So these were your notes. This would be the back page. But if you still have space on your front page, that's fine. Call this part 2. And we call this proving inverse. Okay. What we mean by that is just, okay. What we mean by that is just proving is like, they ask you, is this function the inverse of this one? And it's not a graph, how can we tell? Okay, let's go with it. Bob, did we give this to Jennifer? Okay guys, so here we go, okay? If, now just pretend here. If F was whatever, okay, doesn't matter, whatever equation. And G was, you know what, I think I'm gonna separate this.